where we have reference to the TDMP, and it's just, I think it's going to be really difficult to draft something that covers everything.
Yeah. Councilmember Breckus?
I think that they can do it. That 3A looks pretty clear, and I feel like, we should give them that opportunity. The only other hanging chad that I was going to mention was the drop-off, preventing solo drop-offs was till 3:30, but the pickup is 3:15. And I know that Chris had said she's open to it going later, and I think it should go later. So I would be in support of it going till 4:30.
Okay. Councilmember McMillan?
This is another point from the safety mitigation measures, which is the pedestrian pathway on Fernhill from the Branson Gate to Norwood. I think it's really important that that gets done as soon as possible. I have walked up that shoulder before when school is getting out and kids are coming down and cars are going down, and it wasn't even raining. I mean, well, it hasn't rained in, eons. It hasn't rained in 2022. But I think it's really important that there's, and I don't know if this is appropriate for the use permit or the conditions, but I would like to see something about the town and Branson will use our best efforts to try to get this process going and complete it as soon as possible. And the town will use every effort it can to get grants and funding, like TAM funding, like we're doing on the, I guess it's Safe Routes to School on Laurel Grove, to help offset the cost.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't part of the application. Well, I guess safety, right? It's part of safety. Councilmember Breckus?
I'm sorry, I didn't lower my hand.
Oh, okay. Are there any other items that anyone has to add?
Does everyone else agree with what I just said? I mean, I don't want to be the only one proposing this idea.
Well, I sort of saw it as like, let's look into it. And, eventually if we can engineer it and get the money, it's probably a good idea, but I don't see it happening right away because of money and because it really falls to the town to do since it's on our property, right? Councilmember Cool?
Well, I agree with the mayor that I think this is not part of this agreement. It's something else. We'd like to get it done, but it's a totally different project. We may run into, we had some discussions about a path in connection with a house that was up on Circle, I think, a few years ago.
Yeah.
And there were some real questions by the time we ended that discussion about whether it could be done and it could be designed to safe standards, whether it should be done at all. I think we ought to leave it out of this. It's a separate thing.
Okay, I'm okay to leave it out. I mean, we can address safety later. Are you okay with that, Julie, if we just leave that out?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. All right, last call for any other items.
Just the single student pickup 4:30. I know Councilmember Breckus said 4:30. Is everybody okay with that?
I mean, that's about an hour after school. I think that in the morning, I think they have no drop off within an hour of the starting time.
Okay.
I mean, in some ways, it's almost more appropriate if these no single students are tied to not an hour, but the start time, so that it says, no single student drop off for an hour before and 15 minutes after school starts, and no single student pickup for an hour after school ends, or something like that. Then if the school time changes, the single student pickup changes accordingly. I was saying an hour just because that's what was the time. I guess 4:30 is an hour and 15 minutes. I don't think it matters too much. It just doesn't make sense to have 3:30 as the single student pickup time.
Well, just to give direction, why don't we say an hour before and an hour after?
Okay. Well, oh, for either time, you mean an hour before, an hour after start, and an hour before, an hour after? I mean, I think for their morning, they have, when does it start? 8:45? I forget. I thought it was like an hour before they couldn't drop off, but they could start dropping off at 9 o'clock, which likely it won't happen much because kids aren't going to be late. Let me look in their plan. This is. It's going to take a while to find.
Why don't we just say within an hour of pickup and an hour drop off? So you can't, drop off at 8:48 when it's 8:45 and either way. I worry that we're getting late and we're going to get less clear. And we're going to get a little bit
Yeah.
more into the weeds.
I do think that their prohibition on drop off is an hour before the school start time plus another 15 minutes so that you don't like have a flood of cars right then. So I think we should probably stick with that. And then but for pickup, it could be an hour after. That's simple.
Fine.
Anything else?
Just before we move that from that topic, is there a third person for that consensus?
Let's
So
see.
before we have Councilmember Breckus, okay.
Okay. So should we take a 5-minute recess and then wrap up the meeting?
I was going to say I'm prepared to make a motion.
Don't we need this all written down before we approve it? Like to make a motion on something that we're seeing? Or do we, well, Ben and I mean, I would second, I mean, I feel if everything we said gets written down, I think that we are okay to go ahead. But Ben and Michael, what do you think?
Well, we have some drafting to do with condition.
So, maybe we shouldn't make the motion because I think we should have it.
Yep.
We should continue this to a meeting so that we can see the draft and then approve it then. Is that a reasonable way to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the last screen on the PowerPoint, we presented you with three
Next steps.
excuse me.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably the last step or the last option there, which was to continue the meeting to a date and time certain to essentially approve, subject to conditions of approval that we're going to have to work with. And then, we'll bring that to you at whatever meeting we've continued this to for your consideration at that time. And
Okay.
yeah, but I mean,
Councilor-
I think we're going to need a little bit of time to put this together.
Okay. Town Manager Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. We had originally asked you just to give us a couple of minutes recess so that we could confer and figure out how much time is needed.
Okay.
So that, because the motion should, I think, should include the time, date. Certain.
Well, we're not talking about a motion right now for this, are we? I thought the motion was going to be once we see the final draft, but we will continue this, correct?
No, it'll be a motion to continue to a certain date, time.
Oh,
tonight.
okay. Got it. So then, fine. So let's take a 5-minute recess. My phone says it is 9:43, so 9:48.
So apologies.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Krista, you said that the lawyers could have this set ready by February 15. Is that right?
Yeah, 8:30 a.m.
So we could approve this whole amendment on that day. Is that correct? I mean,
Is that correct, Ben?
Yes.
fabulous. Okay. Then Ben, we need a motion to continue this item to February 15 at 8:30 a.m. Is that correct?
Correct.
Does it need to say anything else, the motion?
I would just say what option 3 says. It'd be a motion to continue to February 15th at 8:30 a.m. to approve with the direction given to staff regarding the amended and restated conditions of approval.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, let's take the vote. How do you vote, Councilmember Breckus?
aye.
Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
And Mayor Robbins?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Good night.